Well, I think people are kind of coming into the room, which is great. I see a lot of people I know, so that's great to see a lot of familiar faces. Again, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Today, we're actually going to dive into our 2024 report and explore the state of small and mid-sized law firms, what they experienced in 2023, as well as strategic plans for 2024. From recruitment and budget management to growth strategies, we're going to highlight what we're seeing in the market and how these insights can help your firm thrive despite challenges facing the legal industry. So during this discussion, we'll also explore choices made by leading law firms to understand what's really working best and the standards that really help them succeed. And I'm excited today to be joined by two guests, Marie Burgess and Jen Lee, who will help unpack everything and really provide some real-world insights that you can really take back and share with your firm. So before we kind of dive in, I wanted to start with just two quick housekeeping notes. First, we are going to be recording this conversation, so feel free to take your notes, but know you're going to get a copy of the recording sent to your inbox. And then we have a Q&A box here for this webinar as well. So as we're going throughout the presentation, if you have any questions that kind of come up, please don't hesitate to kind of drop those in. At the end of kind of each section, we're going to stop and talk with our panelists and kind of get, again, a little bit more of that real world insight. So feel free to kind of drop in a few questions if you have them along the way. And then otherwise, we're going to get rolling. And I figured we'd start by kind of introducing who's going to join us. So I'll start, as your moderator and host. My name is Libby Luff, and I really get the opportunity to lead strategic partnerships here at Practice Panther. And that means that I get the privilege of collaborating with state and local bars, legal consultants, practitioners, and even customers to find ways to support and empower law firms on how they can efficiently and effectively manage their firms. And today, we've invited some really important guests to join this discussion. Marie Burgess of Practice Panther and Jen Lee from Lawyer Success Network. And I'll kind of let them kind of take a moment and introduce themselves. Marie, if you wanted to get started.
Sure. Thanks, Libby. My name is Marie Burgess. I've been in the legal technology space for many years, really involved in launching and helping to scale different legal software solutions for firms of all sizes, from the small to mid-sized firms all the way to the top MLaw firms as well. At Practice Panther, I run the product management team. So myself and my team are really committed to understanding the needs of our law firms, and specifically pain points around law firms and legal professionals, and use a lot of this feedback in order to help drive new product development within our solution. And we are really focused on what kind of innovation that we can deliver to our firms to help them, grow their business, drive efficiencies, and really improve revenue and profitability.
Awesome. Thanks, Marie. I appreciate that. And Jen, I'd let you kind of take over and introduce who you are and what you do.
Sure. My name is Jen Lee, and I am the owner of Lawyer Success Network. I am an attorney, and I have transitioned the last couple of years to helping lawyers have more fun practicing law, become more innovative in their practices, new business model designs, and things like that. I also teach lawyers how to add bankruptcy as a practice area to their firm, as I was a bankruptcy attorney when I was in private practice. So thank you for having me today, Libby. I really look forward to our discussion.
Awesome. Well, that sounds great. Thanks so much for kind of giving a little bit more depth of who you are and the experiences that you bring. So I figured we'd start kind of just with an overview of today's discussion. And we're actually going to kind of just start with a quick overview of the industry report, several things that we really want to highlight. We're then going to get into the budgeting for law firm investments, where we find firms are spending their hard-earned dollars. So then we're going to go to the rising workload of small and mid-sized law firms, and really what their staff is experiencing this year. We're then going to kind of analyze several of these law firm KPI trends and the key performance indicators you should really be focused in on. And then we're going to really wrap the discussion talking about that playbook for maximizing your returns in 2024 moving forward. And so before we kind of get too far into things, I just want to take a quick note for anybody who's joining us, may not be super familiar with Practice Panther. We're the all-in-one legal practice management solution that's focused on helping small to medium-sized firms really across all practice areas, with ease of use really being kind of a primary focus for us, because we strive to be the most intuitive software on the market. Lawyers are utilizing practice management software every day to make your life easier. It should be pretty to look at. It should be easy to use. And so with Practice Panther, you can actually access seamless case management, and that's going to link your contacts, your matters, and documents, whether you're in the office or on the go. You can automate your workflows so you know what tasks need to be completed by when. We offer native e-signature and two-way texting, help with that modern communication to really kind of keep your clients engaged. And then finally, you can really go digital with billing and payments, which studies are showing that law firms get paid faster and they're actually collecting more when they incorporate digital payments. So we want to make sure that all of our customers have access to this kind of option. So let's get into it. This is the exciting part. Our 2024 small and mid-sized law firm report, it's going to be a comprehensive look at some of the prevailing trends that are significantly impacting law firms today. It provides insight into the playbook used by really successful law firms as they navigate these trends and prepare for the upcoming year. This report can be used as a great tool for law firms to reflect on industry shifts, and it can underscore the growth opportunity and resulting optimization we're seeing from small and mid-sized firms. So let's kind of start with some of these key findings. Our report highlights the prevailing challenges and strategic opportunities really shaping the legal industry today. We'll discuss the key takeaways throughout this presentation, and we really kind of wanted to start with these 5 observations. First, let's talk about the economy. It's hard to ignore the economic challenges from last year. From high interest rates and business layoffs, one might expect businesses to maybe shift their financial goals, but it's really not what we're seeing. What we are seeing is that small and mid-sized firms, you're committed to strategic planning and you have an unwavering growth-oriented mindset. The second is focusing on investments. Not only are these firms optimistic, they're doubling down on important investments across major categories. Firms are betting on their talent and tools by maintaining or increasing investment in 3 specific areas that we're going to highlight a little bit later in our section. Third, amidst this backdrop of overall fiscal optimism, there's a lot of optimism among small and mid-sized firms. We still see firms encountering diverse hiring challenges, and they're investing in salaries to really attract that high-quality talent. And as they address these hiring challenges, they must also address market competition and shifting client demands that are impacting your staff's growing workload. As we know that your clients want more than just legal advice nowadays, they're looking for transparency really throughout their entire case. And finally, we really want to talk about each of these areas. We're going to examine the way law firms are rising to the challenge of achieving sustainable growth in the new year. We want to explore 2 pivotal dimensions that'll shape the growth for law firms kind of to come. And so in this section, we're going to really kick it off by talking about the economic picture and the fiscal confidence we are seeing. And despite any economic downturn, lawyers are really optimistic, actually for several reasons. And foremost among them is the projected 5% annual growth in the legal services through 2029. So it may not be a huge growth, but it consistently underscores the recession-resilient nature of this industry, as legal services are needed in both bad times and in good. Although specific practice areas may experience fluctuations, the industry as a whole is poised for sustained growth. So let's talk about this sustained growth, right? So when it comes to investment priorities, this positive outlook isn't just a sentiment. It's tangibly reflected in investment of your resources. Looking at this graph, less than a quarter of these firms are cutting spending in the following areas in 2023. You might even be experiencing this at your law firm as well, as the majority, they're opting to maintain or increase their financial commitments this year. Of particular note, we wanted to kind of call out 3 critical areas that law firms are prioritizing. Rather than witnessing reductions, we actually saw a notable increase in investments in technology, in salaries, and in marketing. It's a testament to the legal industry's recognition that to sustain positive growth in the face of emerging challenges, you must create value, not only for your internal staff, but also for your clients. 75% of firms plan to maintain or increase their increase their investments, showing a calculated confidence among law firms in general. And so, let's talk about this continued investment for a moment, because it's interesting. We're actually seeing a shift in how law firms use technology in their day-to-day. Technology in legal, it started out as this kind of emerging idea, but is transformed into the operational cornerstone that is today. And technology supports how your law firm functions, from driving business growth to enhancing client services, optimizing kind of those routine processes. This support is recognized because 88% of firms either maintained or increased their tech expenses, leading law firms to view technology as a crucial driver of long-term efficiency and improving client services, particularly in communication. And we agree, it also contributes to improved financial management through effective time tracking and streamlined invoice and billing processes. So technology is going to be a big investment. Salaries and wages, that's another area experiencing increased investment, with 76% saying they plan to increase or maintain their budgets to counteract kind of this ongoing talent war that's taking place right now. To remain competitive, small and mid-sized firms are acknowledging the necessity to invest in your top talent, evidenced by there's been a 30% increase in salaries since 2021. And then beyond technology and salaries, the third area we really wanted to highlight is in marketing budgets. As we know, they continue to be a focal point for law firms. Over half of firms retained their marketing budgets this year, and an impressive 30% actually chose to increase their spend. Leading firms are prioritizing really a strong digital footprint with a focus on web development, SEO, and paid advertising. Think of it this way when it comes to digital marketing and your digital presence. There's only 6% of law firms left that lack any kind of digital presence. So for these firms, strategic investment, it's imperative to bridge the gap now before getting left behind for good. And then kind of in this last side of the section, what's really intriguing is how law firms are budgeting for next year. And they're actually going to continue spending instead of pulling back in any of these key categories, with a specific emphasis, again, on the three areas we mentioned: technology, sales, and marketing. And in technology specifically, a striking 90% of firms are determined to maintain or increase their investment in the new year. 90% I thought was a really interesting number. It cements the understanding that technology is no longer a luxury. It's a necessity for staying competitive. And the significant thing to remember is where firms are directing their investments, as they mirror core priorities: you're enhancing client satisfaction, stabilizing revenue, and maintaining really that long-term resilience. So now I kind of wanted to get into a few of the questions, and also wanted to take a moment to remind people, if you have a question, feel free to drop that in the Q&A box. But let's kind of pause for a moment, because I thought this was really a great time to really ask our guest panelists a few questions about these law firm investments. And as we answer them, again, feel free to drop any questions. So first, Marie, I thought I'd start with you. When it comes to technology and software, it's certainly topping the list from a standpoint of budgetary increases. But for many firms, this isn't an expense line. It's actually an investment for opportunity. So how have you seen kind of incremental spending in technology and software actually increase a law firm's return, their financial return?
Thanks. Sorry, I'm muted.
No problem.
I think there's actually a number of examples of where an investment or additional spending in technology can result in some financial gains. And one of the key ones is really looking at implementing a legal practice management solution. It's got a number of advantages and ultimately financial advantages that it can bring to the firm. Any of those solutions will help automate a number of manual processes to varying degrees, whether it's your new file intake process, to management of contacts and documents, or document preparation, to time tracking, to streamline billing. And automation of these processes essentially saves time and allows the firm to have more focus on actual billable work, or in larger firms allows resources to be freed up to do, again, more value add work. we've had, many firms that use Practice Panther that say that, having Practice Panther is like having an additional resource or a virtual assistant, which can serve for, adding additional efficiencies to the firm. And so having a solution that can look at different levels of automation and streamline processes, helps to improve efficiencies, and also as a result improves individual productivity so that the firm can take on more business, right? They can increase their caseload. They can look at other practice areas, which has a direct impact on revenue and cash flow, essentially letting the firm do more with less.
Yeah, I think that's great, especially how you mentioned, take on more business. That's the ultimate goal for everybody here. And I think you really kind of hit it on the head when you're talking about automating manual processes. I think this is going to be an important thing, especially for, again, shoring up your resources and freeing up resources to devote to maybe higher value tasks, as you mentioned. So I think that's great. And Jen, would love to kind of pull you into this conversation as well. And as a consultant, you are doing your own work with law firms. What types of technology or software investments are you seeing emerge as increasingly top of mind among law firms?
I think so, not to copy Marie, but I think there's so much opportunity out there, and clients want more than just legal advice these days. And so the technology tools that I see are a lot of communication tools with clients, keeping them informed of the progress of their cases, solving other problems for them, getting into more coaching almost of clients and consulting with clients than just legal advice. So, and automation, of course, automating as much as possible so that clients can log in and see what's going on with their case instead of having to call your assistant or call a paralegal or even call a lawyer. So I think it's the client experience, the automation side of things. And then I'd also like to bring up the online branding and using tools to create videos and technology resources out there. The more clients see you in action, whether it's on an educational video, on a webinar, or something like that, the more attracted they are to your firm. And so I think using all those tools out there, is I'm seeing a lot of that where we're combining the client experience with the online brand. So.
Oh, I love that. Especially, I love how you mentioned how they're seeing you, and then they're more attached to your firm. And I can definitely kind of agree with that. And I think the more they watch you and hear about you, you become more trusting as well, and they're more likely to kind of reach out. And I love the idea of that coaching aspect as well. So I can definitely echo all those sentiments. These are definitely areas that we hear law firms look to make strategic investments as well. And so, after talking about budgets, I just wanted to kind of shift gears for a moment and thought we'd kind of transition into law firm efficiency. I thought it would be a great time, especially, talked about some automation and things like that. But we're finding law firm efficiency is really that modern cornerstone for firms. And so let's talk about how we can potentially improve it. In the upcoming slides, we're going to highlight the increasing demand for efficiency and the pivotal role it plays in navigating the current legal landscape. And one thing really impacting efficiency at law firms is this shift in their overall workload. Because in the past year, nearly 60% of firms witnessed a notable increase in workloads per staff. And our report provides some really valuable insights into the factors contributing to this shift. So, really, as law firms are searching for talent, we wanted to highlight several things kind of impacting overall workloads that we're seeing, as only 13% of firms saw an improvement in the quality of their applicants in the last year. So let's first talk about that quality in the far left graph for just a moment. One critical element contributing to the staffing shortage is really that lack of experienced staff, which we largely contribute to really the lasting impact of the pandemic era work restrictions. When we shifted away from that in-person working, it resulted in a lack of formative experiences and fewer opportunities for in-person hands-on training. And consequently, we're finding that mid-level candidates, they're just not as seasoned or experienced as they once were. So this leads to changes in how law firms hire. As the quality of applicants go down a little bit, the pie chart in the middle shows how law firms are responding. And many are actually revisiting their hiring strategies. A majority, 55%, actually plan to slow it down when it comes to hiring the right staff. And at the same time, I wanted to kind of call out, it's important to note this approach because it can cause a little bit of a ripple effect as your existing staff they may shoulder additional workloads kind of in the interim as you're looking for new hires. And that's kind of as evidenced in our graph on the right. Staffing levels are not drastically changing, with only actually a small minority, again, seeing levels increase from last year, or excuse me, increase this year. If law firms continue to adjust to these challenges by delaying their hiring, these staff workloads could actually continue rising. And so a recurring theme we see is how small and mid-sized firms continue to evolve as really challenges come their way. And there are things converging in the market right now, a lot of competition and clients who are asking more. We've kind of touched on that briefly. They're wanting these real-time updates. They're wanting the appearance of this 24/7 accessibility. Again, the appearance of, I want to reiterate that, the appearance. Digital services for intake and billing. They also want faster and easy communication methods. You know, as we see competition extending beyond just buying for your clients, you're also competing for top-notch talent, which is adding to your already overworked staff. You know, small and mid-sized firms are seeing competition from larger firms wanting the same client base, as well as niche firms that specialize in specific practice areas. The challenge lies in meeting evolving client demands while introducing new service offerings. You know, this path forward, it's complex and it's dynamic, particularly for those who opt to not leverage a cloud-based practice management system, which really does provide enhanced flexibility and efficiency. And it's also important to note, those you're joining this call, you know, you're not alone, especially if you're feeling nervous about these client demands. 40% of firms right now are nervous about these client demands, and understandably so. As we just talked about, you're already dealing with bloated workloads and limited staff. And we do find that these larger firms can add to their budgets a little bit easier than small and mid-sized firms to kind of make up for these. And so kind of wanted to wrap this section and bring this graph back up as because I wanted to talk about your staff's skill sets. You know, how are you dealing with the changing workloads? Law firms today are seeking talent with a broader range of competencies. You know, first, you're getting away from that traditional secretarial skills. You know, you're probably finding that modern legal roles require a little bit more proficiency in a range of tech responsibilities. It places a significant importance on prior experience and relevant software when it comes to new hires. We know these modern skills must include the ability to interpret legal documents, engage in data analysis, manage and organize documents digitally, effectively use case management, and understand even how client portals add value to law firms. The most forward-thinking firms, they're investing in upskilling existing staff while bringing in new hires proficient in areas like technology and analytics. So let's, you know, get into some of these questions again here for our panelists again, so we can really pull their insights into what they are seeing around these changing workloads. And remember, if you have any questions, feel free to kind of drop those into our Q&A. Questions, this time I want to start with Jen Lee. So we know it's tough to find new high quality talent in this market. Law firms are responding to the lack of quality by they're either postponing hiring or they're maybe making their hiring process a bit more rigorous. What effective strategies have you seen firms take to either navigate this limited pool of job applicants or to ensure a successful recruitment and retention of quality talent? You know, can you share any successful strategies you've observed within law firms?
Yeah, so I would like to go back just for a second what you said on attorneys. They don't come out of law school knowing how to practice law. That's not a thing. I'm hoping that the industry will change and that we will do a better job mentoring and teaching attorneys in law school how to get there. So I think if you're looking for experienced attorneys, you're going to have a problem. It's a huge gap out there. If you are willing to take a new attorney and train them, and the complaint I hear, or the excuse I hear a lot of times from attorneys, is I don't have time to train. I would challenge that and say, you don't have time not to train. Train, use technology tools, record your trainings to make it so you can onboard and bring in new attorneys and train them. The other complaint I hear sometimes is that I don't want to train them because they're going to leave me then once I train them how to do it. Great, now you have a competent attorney out there working instead of an incompetent attorney. Look at it as making the industry better, okay? That's how I look at things. So I would say if you're having problems hiring for a 5 to 10 year type associate, or even a partner coming in at 10 years, look for new attorneys who have technology skills. A lot of the attorneys have the tech skills. They just don't have the law practice skills yet that they need. So use them to train. I'm a big fan of learning management systems, learning management tools, and we could go on all day about those. But I would say the strategies that I've used so far is finding associates who may not have the legal skills, but they can learn it easily enough with good training, as long as you're willing to train. So
that sounds good. And kind of expanding on that, and if you're at a law firm where maybe your staffing level isn't where you want it to be, can you share successful strategies you've observed? Can you share kind of in the day-to-day of staff members at their firm, how is that affecting their personal and professional life? Have you seen this also impact maybe client work, these different workload levels?
it's hard. Yeah, it's difficult to manage all the client expectations that are coming in and trying to balance client satisfaction with all that. I would say, and I'm going to sound like a broken record, using technology tools is really key for that. And setting boundaries, setting out client expectations from the very beginning so they know what to expect, and then living up to your expectations is a really good strategy for keeping clients off of the constant 72 emails and 3 follow-up phone calls route that some people get on when they're stressed out. Because our clients, if they have legal issues, they are stressed. No one comes to us when they're happy. Like, very few people come to us when they're happy, I would say. So if you have expectations and boundaries and then the tools to back that up, you can actually manage a lot more workload than you could if you're reacting constantly to things. And that's how we've effectively managed staffing issues. And everyone's short staffed these days, I will say.
Yeah. And having expectations and boundaries, I think, is really important. That way, you know what you're kind of getting into. I think that's a good point to make too. And Marie, kind of wanted to shift over to you from your experience kind of with law firms. What specific aspects of their job do you see maybe bogging law firms down the most in the market? Where would you say that lowest hanging fruit is for firms to start trending in the better direction?
Yeah, and that goes a little bit of what Jen said as well, but like really looking at some of those administrative tasks that that firms are dealing with day in and day out. It's like those day-to-day tasks that are involved in managing the case throughout its life cycle, like the demands of the client correspondence that Jen mentioned, looking at document preparation, reviews, and kind of the lack, if you don't have like automation there, the lack of automation can easily bog the law firm down as they try to compete in the market or take on additional clients. Setting boundaries is important, but because we see clients having increasing demands for time and access to information. So while I think it's a key area where we see a drain on law firm resources, it's also really one of the easiest areas to address and quick to realize some benefits. So if you've got a legal practice management solution, they can provide the tools that will help improve the law firm efficiencies, help with productivity, again, just saving time. And then firms that may have already implemented a legal practice management solution, you may not be fully utilizing all the capabilities that they have to offer. Like, a lot of them really feature rich and impact different areas of the firm. So kind of hone in on what functionality that maybe you're not taking advantage of. Like, if you haven't, if you're not working with automated document templates or intake forms to help, streamline the creation of those of those documents, or if you're not using automated workflows to help progress the case in a timely manner, then they can offer some untapped automation opportunities that can significantly save them time.
Yeah, and I agree. There are firms that can come to you when they might be using some sort of practice management, but not fully utilizing it. We are, like you mentioned, a very feature-rich practice management solution. And so I can guarantee there's almost, reach out to the help networks and the support networks, because if you have a question about maybe something isn't working the way you want it to, or you want something to happen, there's a good chance your practice management solution already is solving that problem. And we just need to kind of get that information in front of you. So I really appreciate those insights from you both. And so that kind of leads a little bit, we talked about the increasing demands, low-level staffing, and being overworked. So, then the question naturally arises, is whether all this added work translates into returns. I think that's going to be a big one for everybody. We all want good returns in this year and in the coming year. And so in this section, we're going to really explore key metrics that help determine law firm productivity while informing their ability to really achieve growth and return on staff and hours. We're going to break down 3 pivotal KPIs: your utilization rates, your billing rates, and your collection rates, as these 3 metrics are key if law firms want to achieve growth and realize a true cash return. So let's kind of get into this by talking about really law firm utilization rates, which have really long been a key metric used to determine productivity and getting the most out of your staff's time. Really a key metric for law firms wanting to grow and realize your return on that growth. And there are 2 metrics actually here that we want you to think about, and we're really important to kind of break down. And that's going to be your traditional utilization rate and how it relates to your true realization rate. So let's first kind of talk about that traditional utilization rate, because that tracks the rate of billable hours worked compared to the standard 8-hour workday. And as you can kind of see in the graph, the year over year, this number is up. And one thing we really attribute that to is the increasing adoption of practice management software to really streamline your staff's tasks and free up those more valuable time, that automation that we've really been talking about. But then again, when you look at the traditional utilization rate, it's based on an 8-hour workday. And I think in our previous section, we all know that law firms, they have higher workloads, and that's due to increasing client demands and struggles with hiring, market competition. So I think we can kind of pause for a moment and let's be all honest with each other. Lawyers are not working just 8-hour workdays. It's going to be important to define what a true utilization rate means. And that's really the reflection of the number of billable hours based on the total number of hours worked in a given day or week. And that gives your firm its true utilization rate. We see these true utilization rates, they're slightly down again due to market conditions we've talked about. And what does that mean? It means the work isn't done for law firms. Simply adopting a software and using the features isn't enough. Kind of as both Maria and Jen have said, the key is to leverage your all-in-one solution to automate as many of your processes as possible. And so now that we've talked about kind of utilization rates, let's get into another critical metric for your law firm, and that's the billing realization rates. And this rate represents the billable hours logged that you've actually been invoiced for. So in the past year, we saw a little bit of a dip year over year for firms' billing realization rates. A lot of this is driven by market conditions. As you compete to win or retain business, we do find that firms are making concessions over disputed times. As some clients, they might find themselves becoming sticklers over the amount of time that they're being invoiced for due to downturns in the economy. Your clients might be affected a little bit more than law firms are. And so this is an area where we know that effective time tracking will be your key. When your staff has detailed records of track time and it's paired with transparent and clear invoices, it allows your firm to kind of push back when it comes to disputing that billable time. And we have noticed there's some opportunity for improvement here, and we wanted to kind of highlight this trend after seeing it. And then in the last rate that we want to talk about is going to be all about evaluating your firm's performance. And so one of the most critical metrics is going to be that collection rate. And we've observed a noticeable difference in rates for law firms utilizing e-payment compared to those who don't. So we really kind of wanted to break that down for a moment. In this market characterized by really this economic uncertainty, I think we'd all agree that cash is king. So while you're part of a recession-resilient industry, your client's ability to pay might be affected by economic swings, underscoring that importance of collection rates. So firms who are not using e-payments, they saw a slight dip from 87 to 85%. Conversely, those embracing e-payment processors, they've actually seen an increasing, highlighting that critical role of e-payment software. And when using an all-in-one software, you can actually get away from the labor-intensive bill collecting process. You can create automatic reminders, you can implement payment plans, you can even access real-time data tracking. Your legal practice management software empowers you to reduce overdue invoices, mitigating significant delays, and preserving your cash flow. So kind of wanted to turn to our guest panelists again for some questions around these important metrics. And Jen, we'll start with you again on this one. In this report, we highlight the important distinction between that traditional utilization rate and the true utilization rate. Why do you think true utilization is so important for firms to track? And what insights do you think it could provide firms that perhaps track just a traditional utilization that isn't as clear?
So the true utilization rate goes all back to, a lot of it goes back to staffing. If your attorneys and your staff are working 58 hours to get their 20 billable hours for the week, they're tired, they're worn out, mental health declines. So I think true utilization is actually a way more important metric than the traditional utilization, because as you said, a lot of people aren't working 40 hours a week. However, if you have a firm where 40 hours is your max, and you can design a firm like that, by the way, then you actually have to pay attention to what people are working, what you can automate, and what tools are available for making it so your employees only are working 40 hours a week or 32 hours a week. I just worked with a firm where their full-time employees work 32 hours a week. And so a lot of it goes back to mental health for me. I see a lot of stress in the legal industry, a lot of depression, anxiety. We have substance abuse issues. All of those things come into play when you look at true utilization. How many hours do you have to work in order to hit the firm's goals is really an important tool to look at.
I agree, especially kind of around that mental health. And Jen and I had a great conversation on a work-life balance a couple of weeks ago, and I definitely agree on all of those points. So I think it's important to really look at that traditional versus, or the true versus the traditional. And I like the idea, if you want to be a 40-hour work week, be a 40-hour work week. So I think that's a good point to hammer home. And then Marie, I kind of wanted to transition to you for a second, looking at the trends in these collection rates. Why are these rates so critical for law firms to be focusing on now? Why do you think rates fare so much better among firms who use e-payment software?
Yeah, I mean, I think now we're seeing like our report shows, like we're seeing an increase in workload across the teams with those rising client expectations, and then the lack of experience, talent. And this is especially true for firms that don't have some technology or a practice management solution in place, because these manual processes can be severely impacted by these trends. One of the first things that can easily suffer as a result are any tasks related to the collections process. And add to it a state of a slowing economy. It's really important that law firms are monitoring collection rates to ensure that they're getting optimal realization for every billable hour that they're working, because that's going to translate directly into cash in the law firm's pocket. And so having embedded a payment solution really offers the law firm clients the convenience of like paying by credit card or paying by ACH payment. And that dramatically impacts the rate of collections, reduces those collection efforts, it reduces payment delays, and it improves cash flows. So having on the invoice that you're generating and sending to your client, having a link that takes the client directly to the place where they can pay by credit card, or I can send them a payment request, a link. I could embed that link in my website. So if someone wants to sign up for initial consultation, I can get a prepayment of that as well. Libby, you talked about payment plans. So, setting up that reoccurring automated payment for my monthly retainer, or if I, have an arrangement where my client's going to pay off their outstanding balance through payment plans, that just allows me to conveniently set it up with, 1 or 2 clicks. And so allows the focus to be less so on collections and more so on the client relationship.
Awesome. Yeah. And I love that the part where you talked especially about the convenience. People are paying mortgages from their phones, the credit card bills from their phones and things. So it'll be nice to kind of meet that where consumers already are. And then kind of one more question for you, Marie, when you're really looking at these metrics like utilization and collection rates, a lot of times, these can be lagging indicators that provide insights into maybe past performance. Can you share some examples of maybe leading indicators that law firms can consider when it comes to collection rates?
Yeah, sure. I think there's a number of metrics that can help the firm get some insights into, potential future performance. And one is looking at billing realization. So if you monitor your billing realization, that, if you have higher billing realization, so you're actually billing more of the work that you're performing, will often lead to better collection rates. If you look at your WIP aging, so the older the WIP that you have, that's, that it becomes harder to bill and then ultimately harder to collect. So looking at if you have a lower average age of your WIP could indicate healthier future collections. Looking at just your client payment history. So looking at your existing clients and see like if they're paying promptly over time, it's most likely they'll continue to do so. And then certainly, obviously, monitoring economic trends to provide insight on your client's ability to pay. And so kind of monitoring that and being cautious around that in the state of an uncertain economy would be another area.
Awesome. Those are some great suggestions. I appreciate you kind of sharing some of those today. And then we'll kind of wrap into our last section. In this presentation, we've talked a lot about budgets, hiring challenges, staff workloads, and then those key metrics, to track that law firm's success. We also know that when attorneys and staff find themselves stretched thin, the ripple effect of this strain can have potential devastating consequences for law firms. In a hyper-competitive market where clients have more choice and demand more from their lawyers, limited staff bandwidth can greatly impact the quality of legal services, client relationships, and ultimately the economic health of your firm. So what lies ahead for small and mid-sized firms looking to position themselves for success? Let's talk about achieving this sustainable growth. And innovation, I think it's going to be an undoubtedly key player in navigating your path forward. It's really important to look at any obstacle you are facing as an opportunity for really meaningful change. And when we assess what distinguishes thriving law firms from the rest, we find two key dimensions: your market presence and positioning and your scalability. So with market presence and positioning, it's going to really help law firms build awareness. It encompasses elements like your digital presence, your website, and social media. Versus scalability, it's all about your firm's capability to efficiently absorb your growing client base. So while a market presence and positioning casts a wide net, it's really these internal mechanisms, particularly the extent of automation, that determine how much firms can expand without compromising their quality of services. What sets the most successful firms apart in this market is their unwavering commitment to these two dimensions to achieve sustainable growth. And really, as we wrap our conversation, I think it'd be essential to kind of strike a balance between investing in both market presence and scalability to really seize growth opportunities. And we're really going to really dive into scalability specifically on this slide, because automating the right processes can increase your profit margins by boosting billable hours without expanding your staff. So we recommend reviewing your operations to determine which manual tasks are ready and ripe for automation. Top areas that we encourage you to consider would be your intake, your time tracking, payment processing, client communication, and even your document templates would be a great opportunity to automate. And leveraging your all-in-one legal practice management software will be pivotal for scalability. Overall, achieving scalability will require that you test different solutions and find out really what works best for your firm. Using the right technologies, it'll help you gain advantages in efficiency and cost and in service, enabling you to emerge as the resilient leader in the years ahead. The key moving forward is going to be striking the ideal balance between automation and the personal services based on your firm's needs and clients. With the right scalability strategy, small and mid-sized firms can position themselves to not just survive, but thrive amid industry evolution. And I thought we'd kind of get to our panelists kind of one final time for a few wrap-up questions. Just again, a quick reminder, if anybody has any questions, feel free to kind of drop those in. And then we'll start with Marie on this scalability and market presence and kind of these two pivotal performance indicators. So specifically market presence and scalability, let's take a closer look at the latter. Scalability is the engine that that propels law firms toward greater efficiency and growth. Developing streamlined processes and integrating automation plays an important role in achieving this goal. So Marie, as law firms consider ways they can scale their processes, can you share an example of maybe what a heavily manual process may look like versus what a well-automated process looks like, and kind of put that into a picture for all of us?
Sure. Well, I think kind of like you outlined on the slide, the law firms that utilize a legal practice management solution can leverage a number of capabilities that look at these 5 key areas. So maybe I'll just use client intake as an example. So in a fully sort of automated scenario, if you're using a practice management solution, most of them have a digital intake form. Right. So you can create an intake form, tailor it to your specific firm's requirements, and then you can essentially send a link out to a potential client to gather that information, or better yet, sort of embed that intake form on your firm's website so that if you've got someone looking for legal services, they can fill in the information, you capture their contact details, that automatically gets created in your practice management solution as a contact with some level of categorization or classification as a lead or a potential client. With automation, you can then automatically create a workflow that will go ahead and automatically schedule the initial appointment with that contact, send them an appointment request, send them a confirmation email. It can then also assign a task to someone, the appropriate person in the firm that's going to be responsible for meeting with the client or performing that follow-up. And then the process continues, right? So if you're using an LPM like Practice Panther, all of these steps become automated. In a manual environment, you've got like manually capturing that information, communicating with other members of the firm, manually setting up the appointment and dealing with reminders. So having like a full automation from that end-to-end initial process, even to like bring on that potential client, there's no manual steps. So it significantly improves your capability to scale the volume of new leads that can be reviewed and then converted to new business. And that's just one example. Like each of those 5 on that list have got, certainly several examples that we could go into.
Oh, absolutely. And I agree. I think especially those automated reminders, those are so easy to send out, and something as a client and consumer myself, I love the reminders, via text to email and things like that. So it's just one less thing of having to call somebody or text somebody or email somebody of, did you pay this? Can you meet here? Can you do? So I think that's a great example. And when it comes to law firm processes, what's your suggestion on the best place to begin, Marie? Can you share maybe which processes could have the highest impact on your firm's utilization rates, or kind of how that looks?
Sure. So I think like definitely evaluating the firm's internal processes and looking at the operational efficiencies and making improvements again around automation and streamlining the steps are going to have a direct impact on utilization, on billing realization, on collection rates, on all 3 of those. And again, as firms who have implemented a practice management solution can effectively improve many aspects of those operations, which it can increase and then also help maintain those improvements across those key metrics. And so if you look at utilization, if you look at how to automate aspects of the case, so whether that's automated workflows that help progress the case, automated task creation would be areas that would help improve utilization, being able to do more billable work, more hours over less actual like manual work would be an area. Digital communications, we've talked about that today as well. So just having like automated, like using text messaging as opposed to like phone calls, doing automated, Libby, you talked about automated reminders. That takes like the workload off myself. I'm having more client self-service options with having a client portal so clients can get the information themselves and you don't have to like constantly be feeding them those details would be other utilization advantages. You could look at billing realization rates, like automated time tracking and making sure that, the work that you are doing is translating into time entries that you're going to bill and having flexible billing arrangements and rate structures, mass invoicing are options that would help billing realization. And then we talked about some of the collections benefits, but, making sure you've got an embedded online payment solution will have a huge benefit from a collections rate perspective.
Awesome. That's some really great advice, and wanted to kind of bring Jen on board too and ask kind of the same question, where do you say is the best place for firms to get started?
So I have a couple of big things and a couple of small things, because it's so easy to get overwhelmed. Like people look at, okay, I'm going to go from manual to automated, and you fog over and your brain just goes flying out the window. So if you're looking at the big picture, you need to really create a vision or a plan. Like, what do you want your firm to look like? What is your ideal situation? So you can kind of plan backwards from there. So that's like the big, like, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time type way to do things. If you need immediate like action, things to do right away, don't do anything without getting paid first. Work on your billable and collections. I will not do any work until I have money in my trust account or paid in full for the engagement. So don't do anything without getting paid, and start accepting e-payments. If nothing else you do, just accepting e-payments will make your cash flow improve dramatically. So if you were to do small things, e-payments, charge for your work, charge for your time, stop no charging things because you feel bad. Those are the small things to do. And then from a big standpoint is do a vision, create a plan for what your law firm looks like ideally, so you can work up to that section by section through the intake, the time tracking and billing, payment processing. What does that all look like to you? Because you can design whatever you want. And finally, one other quick thing, start screen recording your repetitive tasks. It will make it much easier to train and hire people in the future if you start recording them when you don't have someone to train, when you're just working on it yourself. So that's one of my quick, like, here you can start doing this right now, and it won't require a lot of training and planning and that kind of thing. So
Those are some great feedback too. And I love the, don't do anything before getting paid. I think that is great advice. Totally worth it. And so I think those are some great advice from both of you. Thank you for sharing those. And just kind of wanted to wrap the section. We keep kind of coming back to streamlining and automating and really how that helps your staff levels, how that helps workloads, how that helps the mental load and things like that moving forward. So I think it's, really going to be important to kind of look inside and look at your law firm to see, what really you need to invest in to make your processes a little bit more seamless, and know that, again, you aren't in it alone. As we've seen kind of in this presentation, a lot of small and mid-sized firms are really sticking together. And so it was really great to kind of have Jen and Marie join us and really learn a little bit more about kind of what's happening among law firms that we all work with. We did have just a quick question kind of come in, and this talks about kind of marketing in general. And so I wanted to see if you guys had a recommendation on really moving forward. Marcy was saying that in marketing for our firm, we use Thrive or Yellow Pages. And I wanted to be able to ask about some top marketing firms that anyone suggests, as we're looking to lean more towards legal marketing and any kind of referrals. And even if you don't have referrals, how to get started, unpacking the marketing side of your budget. Do you have any thoughts on that, either Jen or Marie?
I'm happy to jump. I love marketing. I love marketing, so it's all kinds of fun for me. So marketing is one of those things that's also overwhelming because everyone thinks lawyers are rich and they just charge like crazy amounts of money for things. And so I say before you hire anyone to do marketing, make sure that they know what they're doing and what they're delivering. And Marcy, I'm happy if you want to email me or reach out to me. I give a couple of recommendations for firms that I've worked with, but marketing is one of those things where you have to be really intentional. You have to have your message correct before you take it to market. Otherwise, you're just throwing money out the window. So I would say work with a firm that works with you on messaging before you work on buying ad space on Google and Thrive and Yellow Pages. So
awesome. And she said, perfect. Thank you, Jen. I'll reach out. So that's awesome. Well, then great. I think that kind of really wraps our presentation today. I really appreciate everybody hanging with us for this hour and learning a little bit more about small and mid-sized firms, what you've experienced in 2023 and what to expect in 2024. So know that both or everybody, Marie, Jen, and myself are all available on LinkedIn. We'd love to connect. And so feel free to kind of reach out for us there. Let us know that you were part of this webinar. And hopefully we'll get to talk to everybody again.